This episode is sponsored by Smart Travel, a new podcast from NerdWallet. You know that one friend who always finds the best travel deals, picks the right cards, and somehow ends up in first class for the price of coach? Smart Travel is like that friend, but in podcast form. They cover all things finance, like how to book busy season trips without the busy season sticker shock, which airport lounges are worth it and which are basically free Wi-Fi and chairs, how travel advisors can snag secret perks you don't even know to ask for, and how to get real value from points, not just a tiny reward at checkout. The nerds at NerdWallet know this stuff better than me, and that's why I feel great about recommending the Smart Travel podcast. After all, we nerds have to stick together. Travel smarter and spend less with the help from NerdWallet. Follow Smart Travel wherever you get your podcasts. I've mentioned recently that these days I'm more about quality over quantity, especially in my closet. If it's not well made and versatile, it's just not worth as much to me. And it's honestly why I love Quince. The fabrics feel elevated, the cuts are thoughtful, and the pricing actually makes sense. I've talked about my travel jeans, which are one of my favorite items. My wife just sent off her order for her second pair. Quince makes high-quality wardrobe staples using premium fabrics like 100% European linen, 100% silk, and organic cotton poplin. Lightweight cotton cashmere sweaters are perfect for changing seasons and can't miss seasonal colors and prints for spring. Versatile, well-made pieces that make getting dressed simple. Quince works directly with safe, ethical factories and cuts out the middlemen. You're not paying for brand markup or fancy retail stores, just quality clothing. Right now, go to quince.com/traveler for free shipping and 365-day returns. That's a full year to wear it and love it, and you will. Now available in Canada too. Don't keep settling for clothes that don't last. Go to quince.com/traveler for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/traveler. And thanks to Quince for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. Amateur Traveler, episode 987. Today, Amateur Traveler talks about mountain lakes and a disappearing lake, karst mountains and a cow ball, a knife smith, and a wine bank as we go back to Slovenia. This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler. Let's talk about Slovenia. I'd like to welcome to the show Sam Baldwin, travel writer from sambaldwin.me and also the author of Dormice Moonshine, Falling for Slovenia. And so you might not be surprised that Sam has come to talk to us about Slovenia. Sam, welcome to the show.
Hi, Chris. Thank you for having me.
And despite the fact that Sam will attest that the pitching process can be a little intense in terms of trying to pitch to be on Amateur Traveler, Slovenia is a country that I don't think enough people have been to. Wonderful country. And Sam, I think you agree. But what is your connection with Slovenia?
I absolutely agree with you, Chris. My connection with Slovenia started almost 20 years ago in 2007 when I came for just 1 week with my brother. We had this dream to buy a little mountain cabin, and we'd come to the country to have a look around the country, have a look at this little cabin, which we ended up buying. Ever since then, I've been returning to the country to renovate it. And after about 10 years of visits, I decided to move my entire life to Slovenia because I fell in love with the country more and more with each visit. So I moved to the country, I lived in that cabin for some time, and then I also lived in the capital, Ljubljana. So that's my connection with the country.
Excellent. And why should someone go to Slovenia?
Well, it's been described for many years as the hidden gem of Europe. It's maybe not so hidden now, but it still is, I think, quite a unique country. The reason being is that it's at this interesting crossroads, both geographically but also culturally, because it was once part of Yugoslavia. It's got all of the infrastructure and modern convenience of Western Europe. It's got a little bit of Adriatic coastline. I mean, just a slither, but it still has that.
Just a little bit.
So you have like Mediterranean flavor in the south. It's got such huge diversity in terms of the landscapes. You can go right from sort of high alpine regions right down to sea level in such a small space. It's a very, very small country. And I describe it as having a little bit of Balkan spice just sort of sprinkled over it. So it's quite laid back and relaxed. It's just extremely, extremely beautiful. I mean, Chris, you've been there. I'm sure you agree.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
just the famous places. We'll talk about those a little bit later, but almost every single little village that you stumble across, which is not known for tourism, is just really quite pretty and beautiful. So there's a few reasons.
Excellent. Well, what itinerary are you going to recommend for us?
So you've done podcast about Slovenia before, so I didn't want to overlap too much with what you've already discussed. So I've put together a bit of a, let's call it an off the beaten path to some extent itinerary. Also, it's a more active itinerary. People who maybe like the outdoors, probably suits them well. So we'll start off in Ljubljana, just because it's the capital city and it's where most people probably begin their journey when they come to the country. You've been there yourself, Chris, so you know, first of all, it's a very beautiful capital. You have this lovely old centre. There's the river, the Ljubljanica, running through it. So I'm going to sort of kick off with my first recommendation would be just take a walk all the way down the Ljubljanica river. This is this beautiful green river that flows through the city, and either side of it you have all sorts of different cafes which can spill onto the street, and you can sit outside right by the river, and it's a good way of orientating yourself on those first few hours, I'd say.
Okay.
I'm going to mention a few more specifics. So in terms of hotels and things, you can stay in the old town. It's more expensive there. Personally, when I go back to Slovenia now, I stay in a place called Hotel 166, which is a little bit further out of town, but it's got a really good, let's call it a Slovenian flavor. They've done the whole hotel with Slovenian artists in mind. There's Slovenian art on the walls. They are very keen to promote Slovenian foods, and the staff are great. So that's where I normally go. But, you know, of course, there are various other places that you can go.
Now, if we're going to stay there, are we going to need a car to get back to the city center, or how are we going to navigate before we leave?
No, you don't need a car. There is a bus. It's on a main road. So there are bus stops right outside it. I would also recommend, if you want something a little bit more quirky, there's a shared bike scheme all around Ljubljana. It's very, very cheap. I think it costs something like €3 per week. And you can use the shared kind of city bikes. Ljubljana is very, very flat as well. So that's also something that I used to do a lot. I mean, I lived in Ljubljana for 5 years and I loved these city bikes. Great way to get around the city.
And one thing I'm learning is that I've been saying the name of this city wrong. I've got an extra syllable in there that you don't have.
Ljubljana, that's how I would say it. I mean, it may not be perfect, my pronunciation. I did study Slovene for the years that I lived in Slovenia, so I can speak a little bit there.
Well, that makes one of us.
But I'm sure there'll be some Slovenian listeners who will criticize my accent. Actually, on transport as a whole, maybe it's worth mentioning now, I would recommend you do hire a car for this itinerary. Slovenia does have public transport. There are trains, there are buses. But if you really want to kind of get out into the nitty gritty, a car is just going to be a lot better to do that. It's a small country, as you know. You can drive pretty much across it in 3 hours or so. And a car will just give you the maximum enjoyment, I'd say.
And I found it an easy place to drive. Now, of course, for me, they drive on the right side. For you, they drive on the wrong side. But
I've adapted now, yeah. I'm more comfortable on that side now than I am back in the UK. Yes, I agree. Driving in Slovenia, it's very safe. The highways are good. It's not a problem at all. So it's a nice place to drive.
Yeah.
Okay, just going on to a few more things that I would recommend, sort of based on my time living there. One of my favourite spots is a place called Tivoli Park. It's a big public park right in the centre of the city. You've got big fields and sort of grassy areas, big mature trees. And what I really used to love doing was, if you walk up, there's a hill called Rožnik, wooded hill. You can go through the park and then up this wooded path. And it's probably about a 45-minute walk or so. But you get to the top of this hill, which one has really nice views of the city, but it's also a really good place to grab some food. There's what's called a gostilna there, which is the Slovenian word for sort of like a local inn. And that was always one of my favorite places to go. You can wander up this hill, go for a drink, taste some good food, and that's certainly one of the things that I would recommend.
Okay. And so this is a different hill than the Castle Hill right in the middle of town.
Yes, Castle Hall is also great. Obviously, you have got the centerpiece, the crown of Ljubljana, the castle, which is also
Hmm.
worth a look. I know you mentioned that in one of your previous podcasts. Yeah, that's also great. You can walk up on foot or take the funicular up there. But Rožnik's a bit more for the locals. The locals don't tend to go up the castle.
A little more rural, it looks like.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And it's just something a bit more that a local might do. But the castle is also, yeah, well worth a look as well.
Excellent. Where to
Okay,
next?
we're talking a little about eating and drinking in Ljubljana, just a couple of my favourite spots. So, firstly, coffee. There's a fantastic specialty coffee bar. It's very small. It's called Cherno Zrno, which means black bean in Slovenian. And it's run by a Colombian who's married to a Slovene. He's been living in Slovenia for many years, I think 15 years. And he imports beans from his native Colombia. He roasts them in Ljubljana and he serves this wonderful coffee. It's a little bit different. I wouldn't go in there just asking for your regular latte or cappuccino. You'll probably annoy him. But if you're willing to be open-minded, let him make you something. It's a really good spot to try some really good, interesting coffee. So that's Cherno Zrno. If you're into your beers, I would really recommend a place called Project Bar. It's on a street called Trubajeva. It's run by three youngish guys, three Slovene guys, and they've set up this great little spot. It's kind of like a cellar bar, but they've got this incredible selection of craft beer, both from Slovenia as well as all around Europe and a bit further afield. And then my third recommendation for food in Ljubljana is the open kitchen. This is something that happens every Friday from mid-March to October. So it's not all year round, but most of the year. And it's basically a big food marketplace. So every Friday, it starts quite early. I think it starts in about 9 o'clock or something, 10 o'clock. It runs right through the day. And it's this great place to go if you want to try both Slovenian food or international food. There's all these little stalls, and they have all sorts of interesting local specialities, also beer and wine. And then also you can get things like South Korean or Indian. And it's just a great place to soak up a bit of the city. It's very popular with the locals as well as visitors. They've got sort of seating and benches and tiered steps where you can sit. It's a great atmosphere. It's a really nice place to go. So I definitely recommend that. If you're in the city on a Friday, check out the Open Kitchen.
Okay.
Okay, my last recommendation, something a little bit more quirky, is a place called Metolkova. It's what's deemed as an autonomous social and cultural centre. It's a strange place. It's in Ljubljana. It's actually fairly central. It's very close to the main station. And it used to be army barracks. And then when Slovenia parted ways with Yugoslavia, it got taken over by squatters and anarchists, and it became this quite interesting zone. And it's still there to this day. It's kind of semi-legal status. If you go there in the daytime, it tends to be quite quiet, but there's incredible artwork, graffiti art and sculptures and all sorts of strange stuff on the walls of these old barracks. If you go in the evening, that's when it becomes a bit more alive. There's like club nights. There's some little quirky bars there, but it's something quite different. It's something countercultural. So something might be of interest to some people.
It reminds me of Freetown Christiana in Copenhagen.
Yes, it's got that kind of vibe, probably a little bit smaller than Denmark's offering, but yeah, it's that kind of place, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
I wanted to mention a couple of side trips that you could do from Ljubljana. So, I'm going to mention more things that can be done in 1 week, but I want to give the listeners maybe some options that they can do that and not do that. So here's a couple of side trips from Ljubljana. 2 towns that you can visit. You can jump on a train. The Slovenian trains are really nice. They're fairly punctual. They're clean. They're pretty new. They've got some good new rolling stock. Both these places are about 30 minutes by train from Ljubljana. The first one is called Škofja Loka. It's just a very pretty old town. It's on a really nice river. There's a very attractive bridge. And it's a great place just to spend a few hours sort of wandering around. There's a very interesting museum in a castle which has all sorts of exhibitions. It's got Slovenian history, folk stuff. There's some art in there. There's some sport stuff. It's a really nice way to kill half a day or at least a few hours. And then the other town I reckon is worth a look. It's called Kamnik. That's also about 30 minutes away on the train. It's an attractive little medieval town, lots of red tiled roofs. And this is at the foot of the Kamnik-Savinja Alps as well. So if you like hiking and things, it can be a good spot to start any kind of walks and hikes. It's also quite close, I think you mentioned this in a previous podcast, to Velika Planina, which is this incredible set of shepherd's huts up on a plateau.
Mm-hmm.
I think you've mentioned that one before, but it's close to that starting point. So yeah, Škofja Loka and Kamnik are good, short half-day trips, let's say, you can do from Ljubljana.
You're both lovely.
Yeah. Okay. Next, we're going to head a little bit northwest out of the city. So you've hired your car, you can jump in the car and you can drive. So of course, we can't mention Slovenia without mentioning Bled. If you've seen one picture... I'm sure you've been there. If you've seen one picture of Slovenia, it was probably of Lake Bled because it is very, very picturesque. Yeah. It's very picturesque. It's very attractive. I'm not going to say it's not pretty and it's not attractive, but it has become very popular as well, let's just say. And for that reason, pass through it. But I wouldn't tend to go there in the summer months anymore because I think it's a little bit too overcrowded now and the traffic can be quite bad. Instead, I'm going to recommend pushing a bit further west to another lake called Bohin. This is my favorite of the two lakes. If Bled is the pretty princess of Slovenia, then Bohin's more like the rugged prince. It's more dramatic, it's colder, it's bigger, it's a long, thin lake that sits in this valley. But it's a great spot. If you like swimming, you can go kayaking. You can hire a stand-up paddleboard. There's a electric tourist boat that goes up and down the lake once an hour or a couple of times an hour. So it's a really, really, I would say, quite a dramatic, spectacular location. And we're now in the Triglav National Park.
Let me introduce you to Rakuten. I've known about Rakuten for years, although we've never talked about it on the show. They help you earn cash back and rewards on nearly every purchase. Rakuten opens up a world of rewards. You can earn cash back on fashion, beauty, electronics, pet supplies, kids stuff, groceries. But what I'm here to tell you is with Rakuten, you can get cash back on travel too. Join and save on your next trip. You'll get cash back on the flight, the hotel, and the rental car. Book on your favorite travel sites like Expedia, Booking.com, Viator, VRBO, Hotels.com, IHG, and more. Save on cruises, vacation packages, and experiences as well. And don't worry, cashback can be earned on top of your credit card points with many loyalty programs. Because we know you're saving every way you can. So go ahead, take a trip, find that perfect hotel, book an artisan cheese experience inside a cave in Spain. Wherever you want to go with Rakuten. Join today for free. Go to Rakuten.com or get the app. That's Rakuten. And thanks to Rakuten for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. I don't know about you, but I worked hard for my money and I like keeping it. Unfortunately, traditional big wireless carriers also seem to like keeping my money too. Before Mint Mobile asked about being a sponsor in the show, I was already looking at Mint Mobile because what they offer, the same towers, the same service for less money, was something that appealed to me. After years of overpaying for wireless, I was fed up with the crazy high wireless prices and bogus fees and free perks that actually cost more in the long run. Bring your own phone, activate with an eSIM in minutes, and start saving immediately. No long-term contracts, no hassle. If you like your money, Mint Mobile is for you. Shop plans at mintmobile.com/traveler. That's mintmobile.com/traveler. Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month 5GB plan required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. And thanks to Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. And you mentioned, and if we go in the summer, when you were talking about Lake Bled, when do you recommend? What's the best time of year to go to Slovenia in general?
I mean, in general, I would say the best time is, I'd say, from late spring to late autumn. I mean, I'm a winter sports fan, so I also like going in the winter
I
as well.
wondered if that cabin was a ski chalet.
It's not quite in a ski area, but it's about 30 minutes from one, and it does get heavy winters, which I love. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, peak tourist time is going to be sort of July, August. If you can go a little bit later in the summer, the weather can be still pretty nice right into late September. Some often it's still warm then, or earlier in the spring or late spring, you will see less crowds. So if you can go then, it's maybe better. But if you want the hot weather, then I guess August and July.
Okay.
So in Bohin sits in what's called the Triglav National Park. Triglav is Slovenia's highest mountain, and you have this lovely lake. We want to talk a little bit about where you might want to stay. If you're into camping, there's a lovely campsite all the way down the far end of the lake in an area called Ukants. It's quite nice because you're in the forest, but you're also right by the lake. You can get out of your tent and just wander down to the lake. You can hire a kayak or go swimming. Bohin is colder than Bled, but it's still warm enough to swim, and it's just crystal clear water. It's illegal to use diesel or oil boats on that lake, so the water is very clean.
Hmm.
The other place I would recommend you might want to stay is there's a small village called Stara Fujina, and that is at the opposite end of the lake to the campsite. It's a kind of old village, and there's lots of guest houses around there you can stay. Something else I'm just going to mention in general, which I think is worth looking at when it comes to accommodation in Slovenia, are what translates as tourist farms. That you find these throughout the country. If you just Google Slovenian tourist farms, you'll come up with all sorts of websites and options. But these are real working farms, and often the farmers will have a few rooms to rent or a little separate cabin or something. And you can go and stay on these farms, and they normally also serve food, but all the food tends to come from the farm. So it's kind of small scale tourism. It helps the farmers. It's another way that they can generate a bit of revenue. And it also really gives you that connection with the land and with the people. So I would highly recommend checking out tourist farms. I don't have a specific recommendation, but they're throughout the country.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put a link to a website about Slovenian agritourism in particular.
Okay. So from Bohin, something else you might want to look at, there's a mountain called Vogel. In the winter, it's a ski resort, but it's also a great spot. You can go in the summer, you can jump on a cable car and it takes you up to the top of this mountain. And this gives you really good views of the lake itself, but also across the Slovenian Alps, the Julian Alps. You can normally see Triglav, the highest mountain, on a clear day. And there's a restaurant up there. You can do some nice walks. It's something worth a look if you like a bit of fresh air. Another little short trip you can do from the Bohin area is up to this really beautiful forested karst plateau. It's called Pokljuka, the Pokljuka Plateau. It's around about 20 minutes, half an hour drive up from Bohin. Again, it's just a good place to walk, to do a bit of forest bathing. In the winter, they have big cross-country ski circuits around there as well. So that's something worth a look. If you like your forests and your walks, check out Pokljuka. Two more things I wanted to mention about this location. One is there's something quite culturally important to Slovenians called kozolets. These are what translates as hay racks. You'll see them throughout the country. They're just wooden structures, agricultural wooden structures. But the way they're built and the design is quite unique to Slovenia, and they are a sort of symbol of Slovenia. And there's an area close to Bohin called Studor where they've preserved a whole load of these old hay racks. And a hay rack, it sounds a bit boring, it's a hay rack, but they're more like barns and they're very beautiful architecturally. So if you're into your architecture and agricultural history and just beautiful structures, have a look at Studor, where you can go and see, it's kind of like an open air museum, basically, where you can wander around and look at all these different designed hay racks, these big barn-like constructions.
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. a little more than a barn.
Yeah.
A little more interesting.
The final thing I'm going to mention, if you just happen to be in Bohin or in Slovenia in
Mhm.
September, this is an event. It's a one-off event. It's called the Cow Ball. And this is this very interesting folk event. It's every third Sunday of September. And it celebrates the return of the cows from the high alpine meadows. They come back down to the valley because winter's coming. And they have this carnival and these parades, and they crown the princess cow, and all the cows have got their hair braided, and everyone's drinking beer, and there's lumberjacks and trestle tables and palm music, and it's just a really fun look into Slovenian country life. So it's just once a year, but if you happen to be in Slovenia at that time of year, I really recommend the Cow Ball.
All right.
Right, so we're moving on from Bohin. I'm going to mention an interesting option. You can take a car train. It's an old-fashioned train with wooden wagons where you drive your car onto it and it takes you through the mountains to a place that I will recommend called Most na Sochi. The reason they have the car train is it saves the mountain drive. If you go up and over the mountains, you have to go over the mountain passes. Whereas the car train, it's more like about a 40-minute ride. But it's just something fun and different and quirky to do. I've done it several times. It's first come, first serve. You can't book in advance. So if you do want to take this, there's about 5 trains per day normally. Go early. You buy a ticket. It's very cheap. And yeah, you drive your car onto these old wooden wagons and then off it goes through tunnels. And it's also very picturesque. So just a kind of quirky thing
Now,
you might want to
do
do.
you sit in your car or do you get out of your car and go into a passenger car?
No, you sit in your car the whole time. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's rattling along because it is old. The carriage is wooden. Not sure if it would pass American safety standards, but I don't want to scare people. I've taken it many times. Never been any problems. But it's just something different and it's something cool to do, I think.
Huh.
And that takes you can go to a couple of different places, but the place I recommend is a place called Most na Sochi, which is this lake, incredibly blue turquoise river where you can walk around. You can also hire boats and things there. You could even do a day trip. You could take the train there and come back later on because there's about 5 trains per day. That leads me on nicely to our next location, a little bit northwest, a place called, well, I'm going to mention the Socha River. So the Socha River is an incredibly beautiful body of water. Well, I mean, it's a river. It's this turquoise blue. And a lot of the beaches along it are this white sand. So it's almost like a beach in the Maldives. Sometimes it looks like that. Now, the temperature is very different. It's cold water. It's coming from the mountains. So it's not somewhere you spend too long in swimming. But it's very popular with whitewater rafters and kayakers. There's lots of canyons and gorges. It's really a very picturesque part of the country. So anywhere along the Socha River is worth a visit. The place I'm going to mention is called Bovec. It's, let's say, the capital of that area. And there's lots of outfitters. It's a small town, but you wander through there and there's all sorts of offers for different water activities, rafting and hydro speeding and all sorts of ways that you can get beaten up by white water. You can also do mountain biking and all that sort of thing in the area. So if you're into more adrenaline sports, then Bovec is a good place to have a look. But it's also, you can do more gentle things, just go for walks and hikes and stuff. And then just a bit further north there is another town I'm going to mention called Kranjska Gora. This is Slovenia's most famous ski resort in the winter, but it's a great place in the summer as well. It has incredible views of the Julian Alps, these very spiky mountains, very sharp, looks like the teeth of a great white shark, the kind of mountain line. It's really impressive. And it's a nice little small alpine village or small town, let's say. Again, good for hiking and walking. There's a nice lake there called Lake Jasna. Again, a very picturesque lake. So something that you might also want to add on to your trip if you are going to be in that Bovec area or in the northwest of Slovenia.
Okay. Well, we've now gotten to an area where we have very dramatic, jagged peaks in the background too. So very green, lush hillsides, forested, and then above them, something akin to the Dolomites in Italy, very beautiful mountains there. Yeah,
that's right. I drive that road at least once a month, and it's a cliche, but it still makes my jaw drop. There's a certain point on the road, and it's just a little bit before Kranjska Gora, and you pass this bridge, and it hits you, this jawline of the mountains. And I must have done it 100 times, and it still gets me every time. It's really something quite special.
Well, and I say that it reminds me of the Dolomites. We are almost in Austria and almost in Italy.
Yes, Kranjska Gora is very close to the Italian and Austrian border. Yeah, that area is called Tromea, which means the three borders coming together.
Yeah.
So next, I want to take you down south a little bit. So we'll leave those high alpine mountains and we'll go south. And I mentioned it at the start of the podcast, but one of the great things about Slovenia is you drive half an hour and the landscape is completely different. It's like you're in a different country.
Yeah.
So as you head south, you'll notice that the mountains get smaller and the more alpine style architecture starts to morph into more sort of Mediterranean, Southern European flavor. And something I want to mention, which I think is a very interesting experience that I've personally done with a couple of friends, and that is a knife making course at what I'm going to call Slovenia's celebrity blacksmith. He's a guy called Lenart Perko. He's a bit of a wild child, Lenart, but he's a super interesting guy. And he runs these courses where you can spend a day with him in his forge, and he will teach you how to make a knife, like a kitchen knife or a camping knife. You've got the tongs, you've got the forge, you're smashing it with a hammer. That takes a while. Then you sharpen it. You can choose your wood for the handle. It's a really interesting experience. It takes a good day. You'll need a day to do this. It's a good 7-8 hour thing. This is down in a place called Cerknica. So we're now kind of south of Ljubljana, about half an hour or 40 minutes or so south of Ljubljana. His company is called Emberborn. You'll have to book in advance. He's become quite popular. But it's a great souvenir. I still have my knife. I use it every day in the kitchen. It's a beautiful piece of steel. And it's just a really nice experience and way of remembering. So I would really recommend that. The other thing you should do in that area, Cerknica is Europe's largest disappearing lake. So in the spring until early summer, it's this huge body of water. Again, you can walk around this or you can hire boats. It's crystal clear. It's all these beautiful lily pads. But it slowly disappears throughout the summer. It drains away into the karst ground below, where there are all these subterranean caverns and sinkholes. So if you go later in the year, if you go in September time, it's basically gone, and you can walk across the riverbed. You can drive across the riverbed, and you'll just see a few small isolated pools. But it's very interesting. There's a visitor centre where you can understand a bit more about why this happens. It's quite a unique thing. I certainly hadn't seen a disappearing lake before. And just the scale of it, because it's a huge body of water and it just goes within the space of a few months. So it's something I think is an interesting thing to look at.
Well, and we've talked about caves and caverns and karst landscapes in Slovenia before on the episode on my trip. So there are definitely a lot of very interesting caves to visit, but I don't remember hearing about a disappearing lake because of that landscape. Interesting.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Postojna and the Škocjan caves, which are both, I don't mention them in this itinerary simply because you have already mentioned them, but I also would say they are both incredible caves. I describe them as certainly Škocjan.
Agreed.
It is like the Mines of Moria. It's like something out of Lord of the Rings. They are well worth a look. Okay, so on from Cerknica, my next and final stop on the tour, I'm going to recommend a couple of things in an area. We're now going right down south, kind of southeast, where Slovenia meets Croatia. And there's a river called the Kolpa River, and that forms the border between Slovenia and Croatia. And it's a very warm river. I think it might even be Slovenia's warmest. And it's a great spot for easy rafting or kayaking. There's a particular village I would recommend where you can hire the boats called Stari Trg ob Kolpi, which means the old square on the Kolpa. And it's great for families actually as well, because it's generally quite a calm river, except you get to these weirs. It used to be very, very used for mills. So all along this river for miles and miles and miles, there are weirs, old weirs, which were used to power the mills. And these weirs still exist. So these provide a few seconds of whitewater excitement, and then you're back to the more calm, warm, you just float along, all very pleasant. You can stay in these tourist farms around there. You can also go camping around there. And then the last thing I'm going to mention, which I don't think many people have ever been to this place, but I went there once and I found it fascinating. If we go a little bit further to the east, but still very close to the Slovene border, we're in a region called Bela Krajina. And this whole area is very famous for wine. It's one of Slovenia's wine-producing regions. I think you did a podcast on Goriška Brda before, which is more to the west, near Italy. And that's also a very great place for wine. But Bela Krajina is another famous wine zone for Slovenia. But I'm going to mention something which I was fascinated by, and it's a wine bank. This is a fantastic concept. So the history of this is in the days of when your crop, your grapes, could be perhaps wiped out by a disease or a fire. At the end of the season, you may have no wine. So the community kind of got together to create this sort of communal wine bank where every year they would all deposit some wine into the bank. So I think the minimum deposit to have an account was something like 100 litres. So you deposit 100 litres into the bank. And then if you were unlucky and you had to make a withdrawal, you could. Let's say you didn't have any wine that year, or you ran out of wine. You could go to the bank and take some out. But there's interest to pay. So for every litre of wine that you took out of the bank, the following year, you must pay 1.5 litres back. And it's just a cool little cultural experience. You can go and see this. It's just a small building, a beautiful old stone wine house with wooden trestle benches around the corners. And you can understand how it works. You can get a little guide to explain the system. But I just thought it was a fantastic concept. And apparently it's the last one left in Slovenia. It used to be quite a common concept, but it's the last one left. So it's in a little tiny village called Drašići, a little bit of a tongue twister. But the bigger town is called Metlika. But that's something I think if you like wine, then that whole region is worth a look. And the wine bank is just that little cherry on the top. Something quite interesting, I think, to see.
Some people hate to plan travel. That's going to come as a surprise to you because for some of you, this is an adventure, this is a joy, this is a journey, this is a puzzle. And you might consider becoming a Fora travel advisor. As a Fora advisor, you can take your love of planning travel and help others travel as well. The Fora Tech platform, training, and community gives you everything you need to turn your passion for travel planning into a flexible, meaningful, profitable travel business. As a Fora travel advisor, you get best-in-class training, powerful booking tech, and a global community of experts and fellow advisors who help you share insider knowledge to help you launch and grow your own travel business with confidence. Every hotel, cruise, or activity you book as a Fora advisor earns you money in the form of commission or a percentage of the booking costs. Getting started can be as easy as booking trips for people you may already be booking trips for. Become a Fora advisor today at foratravel.com/traveler. That's FORA travel.com/traveler. And make sure that you tell them I sent you. foratravel.com/traveler. And thanks to Fora for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. I've talked about OneSkin before on the show. Their face moisturizer is part of my daily routine. Again, trying not to make my face look like that old weathered couch now that I'm in my 60s. Quint stands out because it's rooted in real longevity science. The founding team are longevity researchers focused on the root causes of skin aging. Many of the visible signs of aging, like wrinkles, for instance, are linked to senescent cells, also known as zombie cells, which is a cool name, but not something you want. Instead of covering up aging, OneSkin targets and reduces those damaged cells. Their proprietary peptide OS1 is the first ingredient shown to switch off those cells and slow skin aging at the source. Born over a decade of longevity research, OneSkin's OS1 peptide is proven to target the visible signs of aging, helping you unlock your healthiest skin now and as you age. For a limited time, try OneSkin with 15% off using code TRAVELER at oneskin.co/traveler. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code TRAVELER. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support the show and tell them I sent you. Well, and you mentioned tongue twister. So for those of you who are new to Amateur Traveler, we'll always have the place names in the show notes as well as in the lyrics of the episode. So appreciate that I've been trying to figure out how to spell these Slovenian words because there are some tricks to that. So
Yes. Yeah, there are a few accents that you need to be aware of in Slovene.
Yep,
I thought, Chris,
exactly.
I'd just end it off with a bit of a talking about food that I think is worth trying in Slovenia. I'm going to run through a few things I think are worth tasting. Not all of them are actually of Slovenian origin, but they are popular in Slovenia. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is a thing called burek. Now, burek is definitely not Slovenian. You will offend Slovenians if they ask you what your favorite Slovenian food is, and you say burek. They'll say, oh, it's not from Slovenia, that's from Bosnia, that's from Serbia, blah, blah. So it may not have originated in Slovenia, but it's extremely popular. You will find it in every single supermarket, every single bakery. And burek is a pastry, normally savory, although there are some sweet fillings as well. It's this very kind of fine pastry which is rolled, and then you have different fillings in. So you can have meat, you can have spinach, you can have a cottage cheese, and it's just ubiquitous across the country. It's a great snack. It's quite dense, a little greasy, quite heavy. It's a good hangover snack, but it's just something you got to try.
Well, and it's a flaky dough from usually phyllo dough.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. I mean, there are all sorts of versions across the Balkans, different shapes, different sizes, different fillings.
And I would try them.
But yeah, it's a kind of flaky. Yeah, I've tried many different ones. Next, I'm going to recommend something called jota. It's a thick soup. It's got a lot of sauerkraut in there. There's beans. It's heavy. It's filling. But I also think it's quite healthy because it's mainly vegetables, or they sometimes have some chopped up piece of meat as well. But jota is certainly a Slovene thing. It's one of my favorites anyway. Next couple of dishes are not of Slovene origin, but as you've touched upon before, because of the history of Slovenia and how it's been part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire in previous times gone by, both goulash and Wiener Schnitzel, you see them everywhere in Slovenia. So they're not Slovene, but Slovenes eat a lot of them. Goulash, especially, you can get a lot of interesting meat, so like wild boar or venison goulash. You can also eat, I don't know if you've ever heard of hot horse. There's almost like a cult chain in Slovenia that serves horse burgers called Hot Horse, if that's your thing. I want to mention one more sausage, a sausage which has caused a lot of trouble. People have fought over this sausage. Countries have fought over this sausage, Chris. It's called Kranjska klobasa, which means klobasa means sausage, and Kranjska because it comes from the town of Kran, which is just outside Ljubljana. It's a big, meaty sausage, but both Austria and Croatia have challenged Slovenia over this sausage, claiming that they invented it, and it's caused all sorts of diplomatic spats. In the end, I think it's now protected by the EU as, Kranjska klobasa has to come from Slovenia. It has to come from this one place. So Slovenia have won that battle. But it's a tasty dish, which you see in many of these gostilnas, these inns across the country. One more meat thing, something called krašk prosciutto. This is cast prosciutto. So you're probably aware of prosciutto, the Italian, very finely cut meat, ham, some cold cuts. This is Slovenian's version of it. It comes from the Karst region. I think it was cured in caves and things, but it's delicious. Great. Yeah. Have a dish of cold cuts with some of that. I'm going to mention that the wild card here, Chris, Dormice. Now, I wrote a book about Slovenia, Dormice Moonshine, falling for Slovenia. And this is why I called it Dormice Moonshine. I discovered many years ago that Slovenia has this tradition of trapping dormice and eating them and using their fur. And I thought this was very fascinating. It's only in a few places now in Slovenia, in the south of the country. And a lot of Slovenians don't even actually know about it. When I first started asking my Slovenian friends about it, they were like, Sam, what are you talking about? Like, why would we catch a mouse and eat a mouse? But there's some interesting history behind it. So in the days gone by, the wealthy landowners did not permit the peasants to hunt any of the larger game animals. So they weren't allowed to hunt the deer, they weren't allowed to hunt the chamois. The only animals that the poor peasants could eat were dormice. So that's what they did. They figured out ways of trapping these dormice. They're a bit like grey squirrels, so North Americans will know what the grey squirrel is. They're similar size and shape to a grey squirrel. Big, bushy tail, a little smaller than a grey squirrel, actually, but that kind of animal. So the peasants would trap them and they would use their fur to make hats and coats. You do need a lot of them to do that, but you can capture them in their hundreds. They would eat the meat and they would also use the oil. You can use that. You can render them down and use the oil for an ointment and other things as well. So yeah, it's not very ubiquitous. If you want to eat dormice, you'll have to Google around. It's quite a fiddly thing to eat because it's lots of small bones, but it's just something interesting and different. I ate it in a restaurant in Kran, but it's not available all the year. So you'll need to figure out who's got some dormice in stock because it's also a seasonal animal. So you can't hunt it all year round.
It looks like Peruvian guinea pig in terms of the way I see some people serving it here from the pictures.
Yes. I've never had Peruvian guinea pig, but from what I've seen of the pictures, it's that kind of thing. Although I'd say probably even a little smaller than the guinea pig.
Interesting.
So yeah, finally, I'll just finish on a couple of drinks. A soft drink, you've got to try a drink called Kokta. It's been deemed Yugoslavian Coke, but it's actually not really like Coke at all. It's the same color as Coca-Cola, but it doesn't taste anything like it. It has no caffeine. It's a mixture of herbs and things, but it's very Slovene drink. You see it everywhere. So that's Kokta. And then I'm quite a big fan of craft beers, so I'll just mention three of my favorite craft beers from Slovenia. One's called, with the breweries, one's called Tectonic, one's called Lojbik, and one's called Meister. Any beer from those breweries are, in my opinion, the nicest ones. So yeah, that's my roundup of Slovenia, having been visiting it for 20 years and having written a book about it and having lived in the country for 5 years. I think it's still an underrated country. It's really something quite unique, I think, in Europe, and it's well worth a visit.
Excellent. Before we get to our wrap-up questions, I know you were skirting around some of the things we've talked about in the episodes before. If you hadn't, is there anything that you think people have to do when they go to Slovenia?
Yes, there is. I just need to think of what places I'll recommend. I mean, certainly I would recommend the caves. Whenever I have visitors, I mean, I've been to those caves about 10 times because every time someone new to the country came, I'm like, you have to come and see the caves because they really are something very spectacular. I really like the karst region because it's something different. It's this middle zone in between the high alpine, but it's not quite down at the sea, and it's quite sparsely populated. It's maybe not a must-see, but I do find it quite interesting. There's a very cool military museum in a place called Pjuka. If you're into that kind of thing, into museums. There are a few other museums I would also maybe recommend in Ljubljana. There's the National Gallery, which is Slovenia's most famous art museum, and it's got some really beautiful old masters' works in there. Another museum I like is the MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art, also in Ljubljana. Worth a look. And then the National Museum of Ljubljana as well, which is more about the history of the country and natural history as well. So there's some museums I would say are worth looking at. I've got two more places that I really like. Two more places that I would normally take my visitors were, again, these are nature focused. I'm a big fan of the outdoors and nature, but there's two very beautiful valleys which are just really quite stunning. One's called Logarska Dolina. Dolina means valley. It's in the north of Slovenia. It's almost directly north of Ljubljana. It's right on the border of Slovenia and Austria. And it's just this almost unbelievably picturesque valley. It's verdant green and then big mountains in the background. I've been there several times and it always wowed my visitors. Another valley or a town with a valley, this is about an hour from Ljubljana, also towards Austria. And again, it's just this incredible setting with these spiky mountains, but green farmlands, a great place just to walk and wander. There's also a small lake there, a little restaurant and bar. You can camp there. If you like rural, pastoral scenes and natural beauty, Jezersko is one of my favorite places to go.
Excellent.
I mean, I've been visiting Slovenia for 20 years, and I could go on and on with lots of places I think are worth visiting. But most of you guys, I guess, have sadly
we'll
only got
let
a
people
week.
buy the book too. So,
yes, yeah. That if you're interested in Slovenia and understanding a bit more about the history and culture, it's a non-fiction account. It's a travelogue, travel memoir of my experiences of renovating this old house and getting to know the people and the country and going under the skin of Slovenia.
Excellent. Anything else we need to tell people before we get to some of our wrap-up questions?
I'm just trying to think, is there any other practicalities? I can't think of anything. Like we mentioned the transport and everything. Maybe just I'll finish off by saying, I think Slovenia is quite a misunderstood country, and people who are not familiar with it tend to think of it as being some communist, war-torn. It was probably part of Russia at some stage. So I'd say most people in the West, myself included, were quite ignorant of Slovenia. And I think it surprises people. It's much more Western than Eastern, really. It's really Central European. So that's something to bear in mind. It's not this Eastern Bloc country in the slightest. It's something quite different. So you don't need to be afraid of Slovenia. It's got extremely low crime rates, far lower than America, far lower than the UK, where I'm from. It's a country of very high equality. You don't see big gaps between super rich and super poor. And this all leads to a very safe environment. So yeah, it's another reason why we can learn something about Slovenia in terms of how they run things. They've got some lessons for the world, I think.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned that it was both part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire and part of Yugoslavia. It's one of those places that I feel like I see more of the Austro-Hungarian culture and lineage when I go there than I do the Yugoslavia, but it has both. But when you're in Ljubljana, it looks like more of an Austrian city to me.
Yeah, that's right. I think the influence was quite strong from Austria and Hungary. And when it was part of Yugoslavia, Slovenia was always thought of by the other parts of Yugoslavia, Bosnia and Serbia and Macedonia and such, as kind of square, the hard workers. They were so organized up in Slovenia. Whereas, as you got further south and east, they were a bit more laid back. And so, it's retained that culture. So compared to further south and east, things do run well. It doesn't have big problems of corruption or anything like that. But it's still got that bit of Balkan spice, which just makes it a little bit more relaxed than Austria or more relaxed than the countries further west.
Excellent. As we go to wrap this up, you're standing in the prettiest spot in all of Slovenia. Where are you standing and what are you looking at?
I really can't answer that because Slovenia is the only country that I've been to, which I actually didn't want to tell anyone about Slovenia. When I first came to Slovenia, I'd been a travel writer in the past, and I was so struck by the landscapes. I thought this country is really pretty. And as I mentioned previously, just everywhere you go, I mean, the smallest, most unfamous little towns all just got this beautiful combination of nature, but with that just enough human addition to it. That log cabin on the side of the hill, that hayrack that I mentioned before, just finishes it off beautifully. I mean, there are so many places that I love. Jezersko, this valley I just mentioned. Bled is extremely pretty if you can hit it where there's not the crowds. It is a fairy tale scene. Bohin, the lake, is also very dramatic. There's too many. I can't give you just one, I'm afraid. There are so many places which have made my heart go boom. That's why you can't go wrong. You just come to Slovenia, just wander the country, and you will find so much beauty.
One thing that makes you laugh and say only in Slovenia.
Okay. One thing that makes me laugh is that Slovenians don't know how good Slovenia is. They often complain. Many a times have I had conversations with my Slovenian friends and they've told me, oh, life in Austria is so much better, or life in America is better, life in Germany, they get paid so much more. And they don't realize how fantastic their own country is and how you don't have to be a multimillionaire to have a very high quality of life. So that's something that often makes me laugh. And it tends to be only Slovenians who have lived abroad and experienced life in the UK or in the US who then have that perspective to realize, actually, maybe the grass isn't greener after all. And Slovenia is actually a pretty good place.
Excellent. And if you had to summarize Slovenia in just 3 words, what 3 words would you pick?
I would pick exquisite for its appearance, surprising because it was not what I expected when I first came. I had that feeling that it was going to be some Eastern Bloc war-torn country. It's nothing like that. Third one, I would say underappreciated.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, you mentioned not war-torn. It's the only country in the former Yugoslavia that managed to avoid the Balkan Wars. When they voted to leave Yugoslavia, it was such a high percentage of people. It was 90% of people voted for independence that people let them go, unlike Croatia and Bosnia and Serbia and all of that got caught up in the unfortunate Balkan Wars. Our guest again is Sam Baldwin. SamBaldwin.me is his website. Dormice and Moonshine Falling for Slovenia is the relevant book, but not your only book, Sam. You probably knew that already, though.
Yes. I spent some time in Japan as well, in rural Japan. So I also wrote of my years there called For Fukui's Sake, 2 years in rural Japan. So if you're interested in backwoods Japan, then you can check that out.
Excellent. And you are still working as a travel writer, is my impression?
Freelance, yeah. I work for a company doing other sorts of writing, and then I write freelance for, other publications.
So other writing for the cash and freelance travel writing for the love of it.
Exactly, yeah. And my next book will be about, I now live in what I call Deep South Austria, which is just on the border of Slovenia. So I'm only 20 minutes away from Slovenia. And my next book will be about life in the deep south of Austria.
Excellent. Well, Sam, thanks so much for coming on Amateur Traveler and sharing with us your obvious love for Slovenia.
Thanks, Chris. It's been a pleasure. I'm a big fan of the podcast, so keep going with them.
Thank you.
Reggie, I just sold my car online.
Let's go, Grandpa. Wait, you did?
Yep, on Carvana. Just put in the license plate, answered a few questions, got an offer in minutes. Easier than setting up that new digital picture frame.
You don't say.
Yeah, they're even picking it up tomorrow. Talk about fast.
Wow, way to go. So, about that picture frame.
Forget about it. Until Carvana makes one, I'm not interested.
Car selling made easy. On
Carvana.
Pickup fees may apply.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
A special thanks to the patrons of the show who help support Amateur Traveler financially. If you're interested in learning more about becoming a patron of the show, getting the show early and ad-free version, and a monthly Zoom call, go to patreon.com/amateurtraveler. And speaking of patrons, I heard from Christopher, one of the patrons of the show, about the episode we did on Dublin. Love this episode. Your guest is very entertaining and kept my attention. He was certainly entertaining. And thanks, Christopher. And on the episode we did on northern France, I heard from Jeff Ulfs, who said I would suggest trying to visit Ypres when the Kattenstadt, the Cat Parade, occurs. It is a unique festival originating in 1937 from a 15th century tradition of throwing live cats from the belfry to clear them from the city. The highlight of the festival is the Cat Parade with giant feline puppets and costumes, and concludes with the throwing of plush cats from the belfry tower to the crowds below. It is quirky and fun. It's held every 3 years, and the next one will be May 9th, 2027. Thanks, Jeff. Never heard of it before. Good to know. I'm about to purchase my airfare for the Amateur Traveler 2026 trip to Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. It is not too late if you're interested in coming with me, or if you're interested in learning more about where we're going in 2027. That conversation is happening in amateurtraveler.com/trips. Go there to find out more. And with that, we're going to end this episode of Amateur Traveler. If you have any questions, send an email to chris2x@gmail.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. And as always, thanks so much for listening.